Good morning. This morning I'm with Peter Foster from Halcro. Welcome, Peter.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Peter, I wanted to start off by asking you, there's been obviously a hiatus with Halcro. What's been happening with Halcro over the last few years and now since you have taken over?
Yeah, well, Halcro basically ceased trading a few years back when their parent company Minelab was acquired, and the parent company had no interest in a small hi-fi business on the side. So all of the assets were basically put into storage, and we came across that a few years ago, started some discussions and decided it was worth buying the company.
Okay. Now, obviously, Halcro, the Halcro amplifiers became famous for their sound quality and also their vanishingly low distortion figures. I'm just wondering whether you can talk a little bit about those sorts of specifications with the new Eclipse products that Halcro has released.
Yeah, look, when we bought the company, we decided what we wanted to do was to tear back every element of the design so that we could look for ways to improve it and optimize it. I must say from the outset that Bruce Candy did an amazing design with the amplifier, and it's something that I would never have made that logical leap to myself.
Sure.
Seeing what he's done is quite incredible. There's about a dozen different circuits inside that amplifier that aren't in any other audio product. So what we did was we paired back all of the elements and we looked for ways that circuits could be optimized either via new components with better performance, different circuit topologies, different layouts of the circuitry, and then bringing it together into a holistic form. Now, Bruce actually gave us some advice with this one. He said that in the intervening years, there are some improvements that we could have made to certain aspects of the circuitry. And so, full thanks to Bruce for those circuit design ideas. They've made their way into the new product.
Okay, so how do the Eclipse products, the new product, compare in terms of distortion to the previous products? And can you also tell me a little bit about this ghost note concept that we've spoken about in the past?
Yeah, look, the distortion is way down on the previous amplifiers. The distortion was already down in the noise. There are times when we measure production amplifiers now where we cannot actually distinguish the noise added by the amplifier from the background noise of the measurement equipment. Mm-hmm. A lot of people talk about harmonic distortion, and while that is important, that's not the most important aspect for us. When you measure distortion, you put in a pure tone and then you look for sidebands and the harmonics of that. For us, the more important measure of distortion is the intermodulation distortion, and that comes from the combination of two notes. If you put two notes into an amplifier, what you'll get is the modulation of those two notes into multiple sidebands, both within and without of that frequency range. So if you think of it in terms of music, if you play two notes on a piano, what will actually be produced by the amplifier are those two notes plus some additional sideband notes that aren't in the original music. So when you extend that to a really complex piece of music like jazz or orchestral or anything for that matter, you've got all these additional notes that aren't in the mix, and that detracts from what the musicians were actually doing at the time, and it confuses the music.
Sure. Okay, so I guess that would translate in terms of subjective listening impressions, that would translate as deep silence between notes and also a transient attack with those notes. Is that right? That's
part of it, but it's also the phase accuracy of what the amplifier can deliver. The phase accuracy of these amplifiers is quite incredible. So what that allows you to do also is to position instruments within the mix exactly where they are. It gives you incredible depth and width of the soundstage. So you can actually visualize where each instrument is physically in the mix, as well as hearing it in its purity.
Sure. So were the new products, we spoke about this before, where you obviously aim to have, excellent distortion and excellent technical measurements in general. But you obviously were looking at perhaps fine-tuning the performance of the amplifiers. Was that done with a panel of listeners? How was that done?
Yeah, look, we have some. The way we do things here is we start off with the technical design, we get it to the point we're happy with, and then the final revision of that is all done by ear. Mike Kirkham, who is our marketing director, he is the most fussy person when it comes to musical performance. He's a musician himself. He spent years producing music, recording music. So for him, it's about the musical performance more than the hi-fi, and for all of us for that matter.
Sure.
There was an exhaustive process where we went through and we optimized every component of the circuitry. Now, when people talk about voicing an amplifier, typically what's happening is the voicing is compensating for the tonal characteristics of the amplifier. Each amplifier design produces a characteristic sound due to that distortion. And so voicing is effectively marrying that up with components that can minimize that effect or produce a more pleasing tone.
Sure.
Us, because our distortion is virtually immeasurable, when it comes to the final tuning of a circuit, what we're doing is we're tuning it by ear. We can no longer tune it by measuring, so we have to start using different components to alter that final distortion floor in a way that only our ears can determine.
Sure. Okay, interesting point about music in general, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Your location, where I'm talking to you now, you're in a studio. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and also how that ties in with Halcro's release of an excellent CD and vinyl release of Mary Webb's album?
Yeah, well, music, as I said, has always been part of our background. And one of the things that we wanted to do with Mary's album was to produce something that was musical rather than your traditional audiophile component. You know, some of those, what we wanted to do is make it a really engaging album. So we went to a studio in Montana, up in the mountains. One of the benefits of that studio is that they have Halcro amplifiers as part of their mastering process. So we were able to actually hear the details in the mix that might not have been available on the mix in other studios.
Sure. Okay. Going back to Halcro, what can we expect from Halcro in the very near future? I know that you at one stage toured with a very interesting electrostatic loudspeaker. There's obviously potential for multi-channel speakers and a trickling down to more affordable Halcro products. Can you tell me what's coming up from Halcro?
The next things that are coming from Halcro are an amplifier that contains as much of the Halcro technology as we could fit into a certain price point. The Eclipse are made as a money is no object amplifier, the best possible. The next series of amplifier will come down at a price point that is much more affordable to the audiophile. That will contain most of the technology that we have in the Eclipse, as much as we could fit in at that price point. It'll have the same low distortion characteristics, the same phase characteristics, so it'll be a really clean amplifier and quite musical. The next step for us is to go into multi-channel amplifiers. We have a technology that Bruce designed many years ago for a Class D amplifier. It's, again, quite a unique way of doing that. And we've got a new generation of that technology, which we're envisioning going into a multi-channel amplifier, which will be a plug-in unit. So the chassis will be there, and you can plug in modules to, in a user-serviceable way, to increase your channel count as your system grows.
Okay, so was that for these more affordable products? Was that technology developed by Bruce totally independently of his more expensive amplifiers, or was it not a refinement, but was it a trickle down, simplified technology?
The Class D amplifier is a completely different technology. Bruce has always had this absolute distaste of distortion because he has phenomenal hearing. And one of the things that you get with a Class D amplifier is you get an inherent amount of distortion due to the general feedback topology. He had a really clever way of getting around that, so that, again, those amplifiers produced far less distortion than you might find in a typical Class AB amplifier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. I look forward to at some stage reviewing those new products when they come out and Terrific. Thank you very much, Peter, for getting together via Skype this morning.
It's a pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.